My mother-in-law, Carol, proudly presented a small, burnt, and frankly pathetic-looking single cupcake at my birthday dinner. For Ethan, she announced to the table, her voice dripping with false sweetness. Since he's always watching his figure for his important computer job, a tiny treat is all he needs. And dear, I use that special sugar-free sweetener you're so fond of. She winked, knowing I detested artificial sweeteners and wasn't particularly watching my figure. The sugar-free was a jab at my supposed pretentiousness. I smiled blandly. Carol, that's thoughtful. But you know who really loves experimental baking? Robert. I picked up the sad little cupcake and, before anyone could react, gently but firmly placed it in front of my father-in-law, Robert. You try it, Robert. For my sake. Robert, flustered and under Carol's furious glare, took a defiant bite. Less than 30 minutes later, as Carol was still fuming silently, Robert was clutching his stomach, his face a mask of pain, moaning about intense cramps. Turns out hurt. Special sweetener, used in a massive dose in that tiny cake, was a powerful laxative she'd hoped would cause me minor discomfort and embarrassment later. Robert got the full, immediate, and very public effect. Carol's face was a mixture of horror and fury. Game on. My initial shock was quickly overshadowed by a cold resolve. She knew I knew. This wasn't the first storm I'd weathered with Carol and Robert. Their disdain for my career as a senior software engineer, for my unconventional life choices, was a constant undercurrent. Just last Christmas, Robert had loudly pontificated, all this debugging and screen staring. When will you get a real man's job, Ethan? Something with tangible assets, not just code. Carol, for her part, would often sigh dramatically. Olivia could have had such an easy life with Dr. Henderson. They conveniently forgot Dr. Henderson also had the personality of a damp dish rag. Another time, after I got a significant promotion, Carol had remarked, "Oh, more stock options. Is that like play money, dear?" The cupcake incident, however, was a new low. For this special treat, Carol had been unusually solicitous earlier in the week, asking if I was feeling up to her rich food, a smirk playing on her lips. And just before presenting the cupcake, she'd loudly told another guest, "Some people are just so sensitive these days," with a pointed glance my way. These were her tells, her little wind-ups before the pitch. I met Olivia 6 years ago at a university tech fair. I was a new grad, nervously presenting a passion project, an early-stage mobile app. She was a marketing student, vibrant and intelligent, drawn to the innovation in the room. She saw potential in my awkward enthusiasm. "That's a brilliant concept," she'd said, her smile genuine. We talked for hours that day. We dated for 2 years. A whirlwind of late-night coding sessions for me and her cheering me on, understanding the drive. We married 3 years ago. Our happiest moment. A spontaneous camping trip to Big Sur, sitting by a crackling fire under a blanket of stars, planning a future that felt limitless, just us against the world. Or so I thought. My background was worlds apart from the Dizes. My parents were public school teachers. They valued intellectual curiosity and finding your passion over accumulating wealth. Hard work, integrity, that was their currency. The Davises were old money, built on Robert's inherited manufacturing business. Status, appearances, and who you knew, that was their world. Carol, a meticulous homemaker, ran her social life like a military campaign. Olivia and I lived in a modern, minimalist condo downtown. No soul, Robert once declared during a visit. Looks like a fancy server room. My job at Innovate Solutions Inc. involved leading a team, complex system architecture, and the occasional all-nighter before a big launch. Olivia, bless her, understood the pressures. Her parents only saw what they wanted to see, a son-in-law who didn't fit their mold. When we announced our engagement, Carol's first comment was, "Well, I hope he can at least afford a decent ring for my daughter." The subtle and not so subtle attempts to drive a wedge between Olivia and me were constant. Carol would call Olivia after every visit, twisting my words, painting me as dismissive or uncaring. He barely said 2 words to me. "Darling, is he always so preoccupied?" Robert, during one of his man-to-man talks, advised Olivia that I lacked ambition. "A tech lead is fine, Olivia, but he's not exactly CEO material, is he? You need to think about your future, your children's future." They also relentlessly criticized my work-life balance, especially when a critical project required extra hours. "He's married to his computer," Carol would lament to Olivia. The cupcake incident was the culmination, the point where their passive aggression turned actively malicious. It was a clear, undeniable line crossed. The day after Robert's gastric misadventure, I started digging. My tech skills were about to be repurposed. I managed to retrieve the burnt cupcakes plate before Carol could dispose of all evidence. I also took a discrete sample from the sugar-free sweetener container Carol always kept prominently displayed, the one she'd winked about. I sent both to a friend with a private food analysis lab, no questions asked beyond. Check for unusual substances or concentrations. The results came back quickly. The cupcake residue and the sweetener sample itself contained an unusually high concentration of sorbitol, a known laxative in large doses. Bingo. The biggest challenge was direct proof of intent. Carol was meticulous. But then I remembered something a few months prior. I'd helped them set up a family cloud account to back up photos and some household documents. With Olivia's reluctant permission, she was starting to see flickers of the truth. I ran a data recovery script on some of Carol's deleted files. I found a shopping list from 2 days before my birthday. Extra strength sorbitol sweeteners for Ethan's special treat. That, plus an email draft to her sister, gloating, planning a little surprise for Ethan's birthday. He needs to be taken down a peg, was enough for a start. The pieces were falling into place. Her pre-meditation was clear. I needed an ally, someone within the family who wasn't blinded by loyalty or fear. That person was Mark, Olivia's younger brother. He was a freelance graphic designer, talented but struggling, constantly undermined by his parents who saw his career as another hobby. I met him for coffee, laid out what I suspected, showed him the preliminary lab findings and the shopping list. Mark wasn't entirely surprised. Damn Ethan. Mom, she can be ruthless when she thinks she's right. Dad just lets her. He then shared something crucial. Remember cousin Jenny's wedding? Mom accidentally spilled red wine all over Jenny's fiancé's mother, the one she couldn't stand. Claimed it was a terrible accident. Later, I overheard her telling Dad, well, she shouldn't have worn white. He also admitted Carol had subtly badmouthed his own business proposal to a potential investor, a friend of hers. This wasn't just about me, it was a pattern. The core evidence was solidifying the lab report on the sorbitol concentration, Carol's incriminating shopping list, the email draft, and Mark's testimony about her past manipulative behaviors. But I needed the knockout punch. Then Olivia remembered the pet cam. Mom got one to watch Buster when they're out. It covers the kitchen island. My heart hammered. With shaking hands, Olivia logged into the cloud service. And there it was. Clear footage of Carol meticulously measuring out a huge amount of the sugar-free sweetener into that single, sad cupcake, a smug look on her face. Then footage of me offering it to Robert and later, Robert's pained exit. The final piece of the puzzle. My anger was cold now, focused. She'd used something meant for well-being as a weapon. The shock and fury morphed into a grim determination. I couldn't just explode, I had to be strategic. My priority was Olivia. She needed to understand the full scope of her parents' toxicity, but gently. A direct, aggressive confrontation would make them martyrs in her eyes. I weighed my options: private confrontation with Carol, a full family ambush. I decided on a phased approach: first, full disclosure with Olivia, then a united front. I meticulously organized the evidence: lab reports, screenshots of the list and email, Mark's written statement, and the video files, all backed up in multiple secure locations. I anticipated Carol's denials, Robert's bluster, their attempts to gaslight and play the victim. I ran through scenarios, preparing responses. I thought about how they'd try to deconstruct my arguments, and I built them to be airtight. The conversation with Olivia was the hardest. I chose a quiet Sunday evening. Liv, I began, we need to talk about your mom. And it's far worse than we thought. I started with Mark's stories, establishing a pattern. She was defensive. Mom she has her ways, but she loves us. Then I showed her the shopping list, the email. Her face paled. No, she wouldn't. Finally, I played the pet cam video. The silence in the room was deafening as she watched her own mother, calculatingly contaminate that cupcake. Then the dam broke. Tears, disbelief, then a dawning horror followed by a steely anger. How could she whispered. All these years. That night, Olivia didn't just believe me, she became my fiercest ally. We consolidated the evidence into a clear, undeniable narrative. The lab reports, the digital trail, Mark's first-hand accounts, and the damning video footage. Our strategy for the inevitable confrontation: present it calmly, factually, and chronologically. We'd let the evidence speak for itself. Mark agreed to be there to share his own experiences of their control. As Olivia and I talked, more pieces of their manipulative history surfaced. She recalled her parents' intense disapproval of a kind, artistic, but not wealthy musician she'd dated before me. Carol found letters that proved he was unfaithful, letters Olivia now realized were likely forged or misrepresented. Mark added stories of how they'd subtly threatened to pull his college funding if he didn't date girls from their circle. Their motives became chillingly clear: absolute control over their children's lives to maintain their pristine family image. My unconventional success was a smudge on that image. Olivia made the call. Mom, Dad, we need to have a family meeting. Tomorrow night, our place. Ethan, Mark, and I have things we need to discuss. Her voice was firm. The next evening, Carol and Robert arrived, clearly uneasy but attempting their usual forced pleasantries. The air in our living room was thick with unspoken accusations. So, Robert began, trying to take charge. What's this all about? I looked at Carol. It's about my birthday cupcake, Carol. The one you dosed with an industrial amount of laxative. Carol gasped, clutching her pearls. I never! How dare you make such a vile accusation? Robert had a bit of an upset stomach, that's all. Robert chimed in. This is preposterous, Ethan. You're paranoid? Calmly, I presented the lab report detailing the sorbitol levels. Carol stammered. It's for baking, for lightness. I then showed them the recovered shopping list with extra-strength sorbitol sweetener for Ethan's special treat. Carol called it a forgery. Mark then spoke, his voice quiet but firm, detailing their interference in his life, the red wine incident. Robert told him to show some respect. Then, Olivia connected my laptop to the TV. We played the pet cam footage. The smug look on Carol's face as she dumped in the sweetener, her wink. Robert watched it, his face turning a ghastly gray. Carol simply stared, all color drained from her. Olivia finally spoke, her voice trembling but strong. Mom, Dad, how could you? Not just to Ethan, to me, to Mark. The lies, the manipulation, my ex-boyfriend, the threats to Mark's education. Her words hung in the air. Mark looked at his parents, his expression one of profound disappointment. Carol crumpled, not with remorse, but with the fury of a thwarted monarch. I only ever wanted what was best for you, she shrieked. What made you look good, you mean? Olivia retorted, ice in her voice. The decades of manipulation, of prioritizing image over genuine affection lay bare. Their power over Olivia and Mark shattered in that moment. For years, I stated, my voice even. You've systematically tried to control Olivia's life and Mark's. You used deceit, manipulation, and outright malicious acts like this. This wasn't love, it was about control, about maintaining your precious image. And it ends. Now the sanction was clear and delivered by Olivia. You will not interfere in our marriage or Mark's life again. We will decide the terms of our contact. No more advice, no more sabotage. You will treat Ethan with respect, or you will not see us or any future grandchildren. A period of minimal contact was imposed. The following months were an adjustment. We established firm boundaries. Carol attempted tearful, manipulative phone calls to Olivia, who politely but resolutely shut them down. Robert tried back channels to reason. With me, I ignored him. Olivia and I, with Mark's quiet support, held the line. It was like setting up a new, robust firewall around our lives, carefully configured to block malicious intrusions. We communicated with them on our terms in frequent, short, public meetings. Our marriage, forged in this fire, became stronger than ever. We focused on our life, Ethan excelling at innovate solutions, leading new AI integration projects using agile methodologies and sprint planning, Olivia thriving in her marketing career. We built new traditions, reclaimed our Sundays for joyful brunches with friends and Mark, free from the Davis family drama. Life was good. About a year later, an unexpected call came via Olivia. Robert's manufacturing company was facing a crippling cybersecurity issue with their ancient inventory system. None of his usual contacts could fix it. Reluctantly, he asked if Ethan might know someone. I saw the irony. I agreed to consult for a hefty fee, which Olivia and I decided would go straight to a children's tech education charity. I diagnosed and helped them implement a solution in 2 days. Robert offered a stiff, almost imperceptible nod. It wasn't an apology, but it was an acknowledgement, a concession forced by the very skills he'd once ridiculed. That was the true victory, not revenge, but the quiet assertion of competence and the freedom it brought. A sense of calm settled over me. We had navigated the storm, not by sinking to their level, but by standing firm on our principles. The Davis family dynamic had irrevocably shifted. Carol and Robert were still part of our lives, peripherally at carefully managed family gatherings. They were subdued, their power to inflict damage neutralized. The ultimate wisdom gained wasn't about outmaneuvering them. It was about the quiet strength found in building a life based on mutual respect and love, protected by clearly defined boundaries. My ability to deconstruct complex software problems had, in a way, helped me see through and dismantle their years of manipulation. True success, I realized, was living authentically, safeguarding my family, and finding peace not in their approval, but in our own.